DGweekly live. As you can tell, and by the title, we're going to be talking about the Dynamic Discs Sheriff. And right away, I wanted to let you guys know we're trying something new this week. We are going to be giving a discount on the Sheriffs for the next a little bit more than 24 hours through the end of the day tomorrow till midnight tomorrow Central Time. There's going to be a 10% discount on the stock stamp Lucid Sheriff. So if you go to dynamicdiscs.com, search for the Lucid Sheriff with the stock stamp, and you enter the code, Sheriff10. Sheriff10 is going to be the code. Okay, Sheriff10 is the code. I just was getting confirmation. Yes, that is the code, 10% off, and that only is going to work on the stock stamp Lucid Sheriffs. We do also have some MyDie options available. It is not going to be on these. It'll just be on the stock stamp Lucid Sheriffs. So if you've never thrown the Sheriff, it is, in my opinion, it's the farthest flying disc in the Dynamic Discs lineup. It flies farther. Anything like that. The stability of it is fairly similar to that of the Trespass, but it just, for some reason, this thing just goes farther. It's faster. I think it glides a little bit more than a Trespass. It's a little bit more nose sensitive, so if you're not very precise with your angles, the Trespass will probably net you more distance on average, but the Sheriff, if you hit it just right, you're going to get a nice hyzer flip and just a long, super long flight. If you have a really big arm and you're just throwing enforcers and defenders and things like that, it might be a little bit too understable for you, but for me, it's definitely the farthest flying disc in my bag. If you guys do have any questions about the Sheriff, leave those down in the comments below. And if you're watching this after the fact, whether on Facebook or on YouTube, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time, we go live with another episode. Obviously, this one is about the Sheriff, but if you want to come and ask questions about whatever disc we're talking about next week or anytime in the future, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Central Time on the Dynamic Discs Facebook page, that's where you can come in and get your questions answered. So, like I said, if you have a question, leave that down in the comments. Really quick, I just want to go over the Sheriff. It is a speed 13, glide 5, turn of -1, and a fade of 2. I think those numbers are all spot on. It's a very fast disc. It glides very well. It has a little bit of a turn, but it's not very unstable. And then it does have a decent fade towards the end. And as far as plastic options, we do have a few. You can see here, these are the just regular Lucid plastic. This one is the American flag dyed Lucid. And then we also just have a regular MyDie, kind of almost looks like burst, but it's actually dyed. It's not part of the plastic. We do also have quite a few, just the regular Lucid. These have a little bit of a sparkle to them. I'm not quite sure if it'll show up on the camera, but they do have a little bit of a metal flake to them. And then the Biofusion as well. These, I think, are the farthest flying Sheriff, but I think they're also the most understable Sheriff as well. So if you have a Lucid or a Fusion, hint hint, if you have one of those and it's just a little bit too stable for you, it's just kind of fighting out too much, definitely check out the Biofusion Sheriff. And last but certainly not least, we do also have Fusion Sheriffs. These are right in between in terms of stability. These are right in between the Lucid and the Biofusion. These are going to be your straightest Sheriff, if you want to call it that. Personally, I like to throw the Lucid. That's the only distance driver in my bag that's not an enforcer. So if that kind of tells you it's straight to slightly understable and just max distance, anything that I need to go 400 feet or more if it's downhill and there's a tailwind, that's when I'm going to be throwing the Sheriff. Do we have any early questions yet, Bobby? We are checking the chat for questions right now. So if you do have a question and you haven't got it in, or if you just joined us, once again, we do have the discount code Sheriff10. That is going to get you 10% off any stock stamp Lucid Sheriff on dynamicdiscs.com. And that's going to be a valid code starting right now. It's valid up until midnight tomorrow. That's midnight Central Time, so wherever you are, it's going to be a little bit different if you're not in the Central Time Zone. But that is going to be the stock stamp Lucid Sheriffs. Personally, my favorite Sheriff. These are the ones that I bag. Just bombs. Absolute bombs. I wouldn't recommend it if you are an Eric Oakley of the world where you just throw really far. If you're throwing 450, 500, it's probably going to be more of a really understable to roller distance driver for you. And if you are, excuse me, if you're a slower arm speed, if you only throw 300 feet, I would expect it to be a fairly straight to pretty overstable distance driver because it does have a wide rim to it, but it's not an uncomfortably wide rim. We do have a question coming in.
How does the Sheriff compare to a Trespass or a Captain?
How does the Sheriff compare to a Trespass or Captain? Very similar to the Trespass. I think the Sheriff is a little bit faster and maybe a touch less overstable. I think it's also, because it's faster, I think it's a little bit more sensitive to your angles. So the Trespass is going to fight if you have some off-axis torque, or if you miss your angle a little bit, it's going to fight that. And then I think the Sheriff is definitely more overstable than a Captain. The Captain is a fairly understable disc. The Captain's like a beat-up Sheriff. I think you could I think you could easily have the Sheriff and the Captain in your bag. I think if you had a Sheriff and a Trespass, you'd have a good bit of overlapping there. And then as far as our other distance drivers, the Defender and Enforcer, obviously considerably more overstable than this. I have a fairly beat-up Biofusion Enforcer that is still not as understable as a fresh Sheriff is. So it's a very long, straight distance driver. Like I said in the beginning, if you're just joining us, I think this is the farthest flying disc in the Dynamic Discs lineup. Probably, for me at least, in all three companies, that being Latitude, Westside, and Dynamic Discs, I think this is the farthest flying one. If I need just an all-out, wide open field, pure max distance shot, I'm going to be throwing a Lucid Sheriff for sure, absolutely. Do we have any other questions coming in from the chat?
How well, Mike asks, how well does it do in a headwind? I have a weak arm throwing about 250 to 300 feet.
Okay, so Mike wanted to know how it does in a headwind. He throws about 250 to 300, he said. For that arm speed, Mike, I think you can get away with it. I think it's going to be a decent wind fighter for you while still getting you some distance. I'm not sure what you're using right now. If it's something like an Enforcer like we were talking about, I think that's going to be too overstable for you. I think that's going to be, unless you're playing in like 50-mile-an-hour headwinds, I think that's going to be too much overstability, even in a headwind. I think if you're throwing 250 feet and you have a Sheriff in a headwind, I don't think you have to worry about it flipping or anything like that. I think it's still going to give you that nice straight flight with a decent, reliable fade. I know there's somebody probably out there who throws this disc sidearm. That person is not me. My sidearm is not very good, so I have to stick to things like Felons and Criminals that are pretty overstable. But if you get this right, I believe it was Zach Melton threw the Sheriff sidearm for a minute there and just absolutely smashed it. We have another question.
Joel says, I found the Captain holds better on a hyzer flip. What's your opinion?
Joe said that the Captain holds better on a hyzer flip. I would agree, just because the Captain is a little bit more understable than the Sheriff. I think the Sheriff is going to stand up and go straight, where the Captain is going to kind of give you that full distance flight path. So I would absolutely agree with you there, Joe. Again, depending on your arm speed, like Mike was just saying, he only throws 250 to 300. So the Captain is going to give him much more of a hyzer flip than the Sheriff, which is just going to hold that hyzer line. For me, the Sheriff is going to give me a hyzer flip and some turn, where the Captain is going to hyzer flip and turn over and not come back. So it all depends on your arm speed, but yes, I would agree. For most players, you're definitely going to get a better hyzer flip shot out of the Captain than a Sheriff. And once again, if you are just joining us, leave your questions down in the comments below. We do have quite a plethora of plastics for the Sheriff, so I'm going to grab those. We obviously have the Lucid Sheriff. This one, as you can see, it's got a little bit of a metal flake, kind of some sparkle in there. We do also have a Fusion Sheriff. This is going to be a little bit less overstable, I think, than the Lucid Sheriffs. We also have the Biofusion Sheriff. This is definitely, in my opinion, the most understable version of the Sheriff. It's not as understable as we were just talking about the Captain. It's not as understable as that, but it is the most understable Sheriff. And we also have two different versions of the MyDie Lucid Sheriff. These do not qualify under the discount code. That discount code being Sheriff10. That is only going to apply to the stock stamp Lucid Sheriffs. So these will not count, but the regular Lucid stock stamps will. This one you can see has a little bit of an American flag to it, and this one kind of has almost a burst look to it, but not quite burst. Just a my-dye, really cool looking design, since we don't have any actual burst sheriffs. We do have another question coming in.
Joe asks again, so I've seen a huge difference in the bio sheriffs, that they are super flippy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Joe, he said he's seen a big difference with the bio sheriffs. They're being the most understable. Absolutely, Joe. In just looking at them, I don't really see a whole lot of difference. Maybe a hair less dome, but they look the same. I think that's just the plastic type. The Biofusion plastic seems to be a touch more understable than something like Lucid or Fusion, so I would absolutely agree with you there, Joe. The Biofusion Sheriff definitely is the most understable. I still bag, and I used to bag a different Lucid Sheriff that I lost on accident once, and I had to replace it with a Biofusion because I didn't have another beat-up Lucid Sheriff. And so I grabbed a Biofusion Sheriff, and it was almost exactly the same. So yes, definitely the most understable plastic for the Sheriff. Unless we come out with some sort of like a Prime Sheriff, that probably would be. But right now we do not have that, just the ones that I've showed you. Do we have any other questions coming in there from the chat board, Bobby? So if you are watching this after the fact, when I'm asking for questions, we do post these on YouTube and Facebook. If you want to join live and get your questions answered, or just hang out on a Wednesday afternoon, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time on the Dynamic Discs Facebook page, we go live with a new episode of DG Weekly Live. This week obviously was the Sheriff. Next week, who knows? But we do also have, we're trying it new this week, the discount code for the Sheriff is Sheriff10. And so depending on how that goes, next week we might do a different disc, we might do a different discount, might do a different code, who knows. So you're going to have to come out on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time on the Dynamic Discs Facebook page. If there are any last minute questions, get those in now, and I will quickly give you just a...
So have you seen heavier biofusions be more stable?
Have I seen heavier bios be more stable? Yes, I've seen, a 175 Biofusion is going to be more stable than a 168 Biofusion, but I would say a 175 Biofusion is probably not going to be, if more stable, it's probably not going to be a whole lot more stable than like a 168 Lucid. It's a noticeable difference between Biofusion and the other plastics, whereas a few grams difference in the weight, I don't really notice anything. So if you just like the feel of the Biofusion, I would try the Fusion. It feels really similar, especially this one right here. It feels really similar to Fusion, but it does give a much more understable flight path to it for sure.
Someone do we know the lightest weight that is made in bio?
The lightest weight Biofusion, this one's a 170. I've seen like 168. There might be a 167, but I wouldn't guess any lighter than that. Maybe if you're lucky 166, but yeah, high 160s is going to be the lightest for sure.
I'm not sure Elza understands what show they're watching, but he wants to know if you get in the Ace Fund now.
I know exactly what he's referring to. Elza wants to know if I can get in the Ace Fund now.
Because you didn't.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So in Kansas City, I played the Rosedale Cup a few months ago, and I hit my first tournament ace without signing up for the ace pot because I'm not the smartest person in the world. I didn't hit it with a Sheriff, actually, unfortunately. But yes, Elza, I do. I did before. I thought I did, but that's a mistake. I'm only going to make one time. Speaking of ace pots, we have a huge ace pot tonight at our Emporia Tag League, and we're playing at the middle school, which is a short, fairly open course, and you don't have to pay to get in that one, really. It's $1. So, fingers crossed for me, Elza. Come on.
Steven says, don't know if it's an appropriate question. Just about any question is good, Steven. But what DD disc is closest to an end of a turn, and what is the lightest weight it comes in?
Okay, so Steven, no worries about appropriate or inappropriate questions. As long as it's disc golf related, we're good. You wanted to know what is closest to the end of a turn. For me, in the dynamic discs lineup, I'd say the Captain. It has that nice, easy hyzer flip out of the box. The Sheriff would be a good option as well, but I think the Sheriff is a little bit faster and a little bit more stable. So if you have a really big arm, try the Sheriff. If you have maybe you max out at 370 or less, then I would try out the brand new Lucid Captain.
Tommy asks, do you have experience with SE Ballista Pros? I've used one like a Lucid Sheriff? Your opinion?
Yeah, Tommy was asking about the SE, the Special Edition Ballista Pros from Latitude 64. Yeah, I think these are the two discs that are in contention for the longest flying disc in all three companies' lineups, and that purely is just going to depend on arm speed. If you are an Eric McCabe and you have no problem reaching 450, then yeah, the SE Ballista Pro is going to fly farther. If you throw less than that, if you throw 400, I think the Lucid Sheriff is going to fly farther. And it's just because it's a little bit less overstable. The Ballista Pros are very, very fast. They have a really wide rim, and they want to go far, but they want to go far fast. Where the Sheriff, I think, has a little bit less fade at the end, and so if you can't get it to hold that high speed, I think the Sheriff is going to settle softer, where the Ballista Pro is really going to finish hard if it doesn't maintain that spin and that high speed. So yeah, similar discs, but I think the Ballista Pro is a little bit faster, a little bit more overstable.
Tanner asks, I can get a Trespass out about 300 to 350 feet.
Okay.
Would the Sheriff still be too much of a disc for me?
Tanner says he gets the Trespass to about 300 to 350. Would the Sheriff be too much disc? Not too much disc depending on what you're looking for it to be, but I think it's going to be very similar in flight to your Trespasses. You might get 310 to 360 out of a Sheriff where you're getting 300 to 350 out of the Trespass. I don't think you're going to notice too much difference, but if you're just looking for that long distance hyzer shot, or if you want something that you can throw hard and flat and you know is going to fade out at the end, yeah, I think the Sheriff is going to be great. If you want it for, like, I use it for big long turnovers and hyzer flips. If you want the Sheriff for that, I would say a lighter weight Biofusion, but other than that, yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit too much disc fresh out of the box for you.
So, last question from Joe. Would you recommend a Fusion Sheriff for beef in the beginning of her life, then get flipped?
Joe was asking about if I would recommend the Fusion Sheriff for beef at the beginning of its flight and then beating it up to flippy. Yes and no. Like I've kind of said a few times, it all depends on your arm speed. For me, it doesn't really matter. I throw about 400 feet on a good shot. It doesn't matter the plastic. The Sheriff is never really going to be something that I would consider it beefy. If, I believe his name was Tanner, just asked where he said he only throws 300 to 350, then yeah, depending on the plastic type, it would be beefy. So the Fusion, I think, is a little bit less overstable than the Lucid. If you want the most stability out of a Sheriff that you can get, I would say look for a Lucid one. The more dome, the better, but they all seem to be the same to me. The Lucid's a little bit more than the Fusion. I know you asked about Fusion, but yes, both of those are considerably more overstable than Biofusion, but I wouldn't really consider any of them beefy like you would a Felon or Enforcer or something like that.
Elza says, what about a Renegade? Is that like a turn?
The Renegade, Elza, going back to the turn, a little bit slower than a turn and a lot more understable than a turn. It's going to be like a beat-up turn. If you threw a turn for straight shots, then you would be able to throw the Renegade for hyzer flips or turnover shots. I think the Trespass, maybe if you get like a Biofusion one and beat it up a lot, but I really think the Captain is probably going to be the way to go. In terms of just dynamic discs, I think the Captain's the closest one for sure.
Richard asks, I flip over a Trespass, so this disc for me?
Richard is saying that he flips over a Trespass and wants to know, is this disc right for him? Richard, I would say it's going to depend on your angle control. If you have good angle control and you don't, when your discs come out, they don't come out wobbling or anything like that, then I would say yes, the Sheriff would be a great disc for you, and you can use that coupon code Sheriff10 on a stock stamp Lucid to get 10% off from Dynamic Discs. But if you have trouble with controlling your angles and the disc comes out wobbly a little bit, then I think you're going to get similar results to the Sheriff. And that's something that you could fix just by doing a little bit of field work. Film yourself, post it to the Disc Golf Answer Man group on Facebook, and you can get a form critique, and then you can really get those nice clean lines, and then yeah, then the Sheriff is going to be perfect for you, absolutely. Do we have any other closing questions? If not, last chance, get those in right now, and if you're watching after the fact, again, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Central Time. We do this every week on the Dynamic Discs Facebook page. This week we are trying something new with the discount code Sheriff10. So any stock stamp Lucid Sheriff is going to be 10% off if you use the coupon code Sheriff10. And so how you do that, just go to dynamicdiscs.com, search for Lucid Sheriff, buy the stock stamp, and then at the end of your order, you'll have the option to put in a coupon code, type in Sheriff1010, the number 10, and then you're going to get 10% off on these. We do have it in the stock stamp Lucid. You just saw the Biofusions and the MyDye. We also have, last but certainly not least, and someone was just asking about it, the Fusion Sheriff. In terms of stability, I think that the Fusion Sheriff is kind of the straightest. It's kind of the middle of the three. I think the Lucid is the most stable, and I think the Biofusion is the most understable. Really quick recap, the Sheriff is, in my opinion, the farthest flying disc in the Dynamic Discs lineup. If you need a disc that is purely about distance, you just want something that's going to give you those big, max distance flexing shots, I think the Sheriff is the way to go. It is a speed 13, glide 5, turn of -1, and a fade of 2. Those numbers are spot on for me. Throw it with a little bit of hyzer, you're going to get a little bit of turn, and then a good, reliable fade at the end. Not too wide of a rim. It's a fairly comfortable grip in my hand. I don't have huge hands, but it does fit really well. It's not too shallow either. And it looks like we do have one more question coming in.
So, Lucid Captain or Lucid Renegade? With the Renegade being flippier, is the Renegade a good backhand roller?
Okay, so someone was asking Lucid Captain or Lucid Renegade. With the Renegade being a little bit more understable, they were asking if it's a good roller. Absolutely. If I were to bag a Renegade, I would bag it almost strictly for rollers. I know that's what Robert McCall does, Eric McCabe does, I'm sure a bunch of other people do as well. The Lucid Captain is a little bit faster, and it's going to be a little bit less understable than the Renegade, so if you have a big arm, it could definitely be your roller. I know Zach Melton was throwing it for rollers there for a minute. So yeah, you could have both in your bag, but I doubt you're going to need both in your bag as purely rollers. I think the Captain would be a more reliable air shot, where the Renegade would make a more reliable roller. Do we have any last minute questions other than that? That is it. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. Again, if you just joined at the very end, I'm sorry. The recap will be up on Facebook and YouTube, but we do have the discount code Sheriff10, the number 10, on the stock stamp Lucid Sheriffs. If you go to dynamicdiscs.com, you can get one of these for 10% off just at the end of your order. Type in the code Sheriff10 and you'll get 10% off. We do these every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time on the Dynamic Discs Facebook page. Next week is going to be a surprise. We'll surprise you for next week because I don't even know what it's going to be. But we will see you guys again in 1 week. And again, the code is only good for 24 hours. It ends tomorrow, Thursday the 13th, I believe it is, or the 14th maybe.
14th.
Thursday the 14th at midnight Central Time is the last chance you're going to have to use that coupon code Sheriff10 on the stock stamp Lucid Sheriff. So, okay, thank you guys. We will see you next week.